warm welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. My name is Henrik Palmgren. I'm the editor and webmaster of redicecreations.com. This is our internet talk radio show recorded from the west coast of Sweden. You can join us every Thursday and Sunday for our regular program, and don't miss out on our subscriber section if you want to have full access to our growing archive of radio shows. Today we have Michael Sharp back with us on the program. For those of you who are regular listeners and have been with us for a while, remember that Michael have been on the show 2 times before. And today we are going to spend some time talking about Michael's latest book, or a booklet called The Mystical Big Toe, a strong theory of consciousness and creation. And Michael sent me a PDF a few weeks ago that I've been going through, and I'm looking forward to diving into this booklet more today. Also, before we begin here, let me mention Michael's website for all you guys who want to pop over there right away to check things out. It's simply michaelsharp.org. Again, that's michaelsharp.org. So with that, let's say welcome back to the program, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us again. Hope you are good and that things are good.
Everything's good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. You know, I just wanted to mention also before we kick things off here that we are recording this right next to an open window. The heat up here now is very intense, and we wouldn't be able to have it with a closed window. So I hope if you hear any strange noises, as it were, you know that is coming from the outside. Anyway, you know, Michael, it's great to have you back again, as I said, and this is a very interesting book, and the last show we did, I think we dived into the Book of Light, among other things, and talked about this, and it feels like this is a kind of a continuation on that, or the expansion of that book that you had out there. And one thing that you mentioned, I think it would be appropriate to kind of start at the beginning. This is, of course, as I said, in the subtitle is a strong theory of consciousness and creation, and we're certainly going to get into that the theory, as it were. But let's start at the top and talk a little bit about some of the differences and the problem, as it were, that you mentioned. About there are 2 different fields now. One we could maybe call the noetic science field, and the other one the Newtonian. And you also mentioned that your background or your biography is quite unique in this to help kind of bridge these 2 fields. And you also mentioned that it's time to kind of argue with the Newtonian phase of science. Tell us a little about that, if you will, and why is this important, do you think, to kind of face the Newtonian science, as it were?
Well, Newtonian science is basically materialist science. It's the science that emerged after the fall of the authority of the Church, with Newton and Galileo and all those folks who were doing empirical research and testing the theories that had been given by the Church and saying, well, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right here. It doesn't appear like the Earth is at the center of everything, and it doesn't appear like there's a hell and all this other stuff. And they were questioning. And out of almost, I think, partly a reaction to the dogma of the Church, they set a materialist science, which kind of it ejected any consideration of anything that was invisible. If you ask somebody who's not very critical today, they'll say, well, you rejected things that you couldn't see. But really what they did was reject things of a spiritual nature, not probably justifiably given, what the Church had wrought during that period, with the Inquisitions and all these other stuff, right? Yeah. It wasn't, spirit didn't really have a good name back then, so you can see why they did that. But they basically put forward, a materialist ontology, which said, well, if you can't see it, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Yeah. And they erased spirit, they erased animisms, they erased just about everything, and said it's the material world and nothing else. And now what we're seeing, what we have been seeing since the 60s at least, but it's starting to really gain momentum, I think, is the emergence of a new worldview, or a new perspective on things, at least that isn't quite so hostile towards spirit. I'm talking about scientists here, but that are open to consideration of the fact that there may be something else out there besides just the material world. There may be other things going on.
Yeah.
And that's, I loosely refer to that as kind of noetic sciences, and these are the sciences that look at paranormal phenomena, PK, ESP, remote viewing, that kind of thing. And they've been at it for about 30 years now. And, the evidence that they're building up that that there's more than the material world is it's beginning to become weighty. It's people who want to hang on to materialism basically need to ignore that evidence now.
So, and you also, of course, as I said, you mentioned kind of your background or your your unique biography, as it were, to kind of help to bridge these two fields. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I'm trained as a social scientist. I'm a sociologist by training. I have my PhD, trained in a big university and all that other stuff. So I'm quite familiar, and I run my own journal, and I'm quite familiar with science and the methods of science and the history of science and all these other things. And I was familiar with these things before I became, 3 years ago, a mystic.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that a little bit in the paper where I was minding my own business one day, but then all of a sudden this other world started to impinge on my empirical sensibilities. And before this I had been agnostic. I was raised Christian, but rejected the church at an early age because of all the contradictions.
Yeah.
And, committed to a life of scientific atheism. But then there was various experiences that I was having that weren't fitting into that. The materialism that we talked about at the top, the Newtonian version of the world. And, I kept an open mind about these things and kind of followed the implications. And, pretty soon you've had me on the show a couple of times, writing as a full-blown mystic.
Yeah.
God and spirit, and the end times, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been just recently where I've kind of said, okay, how do you blend these two, right?
Yeah.
And the article is an attempt to do that, and it's really an attempt to say, well, okay, people with a scientific sensibility can talk about these things because the evidence is there.
Yeah.
And they maybe don't want to go all the way and talk about God or these other things, but obviously there's something else there.
Yeah, definitely, and it feels kind of in your, as you say, or even the language you use, you have directed this towards more a scientific community maybe than if you are to compare it with your previous works, right?
Yes, that's right. Well, it is really aimed, like you said at the top of the show, it's kind of a continuation of the Book of Light. And the Book of Light it's basically a complete cosmology and theology. It's the theory of everything, right? It's like you want to know why you're here, what you're doing here, why the world is here. It's in that book.
Yeah.
But that book was written for everybody, for lay readers, and I don't really I know those scientists have read that book and said, hey, wow, this is neat stuff. Most scientists wouldn't read that book because of just the tone of the language and it's a very chatty sort of book. And so this book it takes basically that theory, not all of what's in the Book of Light, but a portion of it, and wraps it up in a dialogue about who I am and how I'm trying to integrate these fields, and why it's a good idea. Why it's a good idea that we should do that, and then presents it. You're right, to a scientific audience, which hopefully won't be too hostile.
Do you feel because this was a question that kind of popped up in my head while I was going through this booklet, and that was kind of is it even possible to reach the scientific community anymore, or do you think that is locked because of the choice, as you say, of a few words even or something like that actually makes the scientific minded people to kind of turn away from it all, or do you think it's possible to penetrate that hard shield, as it were?
Oh, I think it's penetrable. I think what will happen is what I'm aiming for. There's a real strategy here. I've submitted this article to a journal for consideration, and they've agreed to send it out, which is good. I mean, they don't send out. Can I say crap on the radio?
Yeah, absolutely.
They won't send out that for review.
Yeah.
They'll send out something that has a reasonable chance of being accepted. I'm not sure if it will be, but really, even the article is not really aimed at a specialist noetic. The noetic community, the people who are already kind of convinced of this stuff. It's really aimed at general scientists who are going to be having questions.
Yeah.
They'll be same thing will be happening to them that happened to me 3 years ago, where things will be going on and they won't know why. And then here's this book that says, well, here's why.
Yeah.
This is what you should be considering. And here's this. Not only does it have implications for your personal life, but it also has implications for your professional life and the kind of research you do and the kind of things that you say.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely, and I've talked to scientists about this. I've had hard-nosed biological scientists, medical doctors, who just fall over gushing about this stuff like it's great stuff, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, there's going to be dog dogmatic scientists out there who are going to refuse to even look at it because of the dogma. And I talk a lot about the dogma of science and compare science to the church in the article, which is also like a call for a paradigm shift, which basically the argument is there. Look, we're at the same position now where we were with Galileo, that now there's a bunch of people in control of knowledge that they believe is the truth, and all the evidence kind of piling up against them, and we would have made this, if we're kind of afraid of being labeled heretics and burned at the cross, but we don't need to be afraid of that anymore. And we can jump out and say, hey, I believe this stuff, or I think there's valid scientific knowledge without being burned. And so,
definitely.
There's that argument in the paper for that paradigm shift.
So do you think that this paradigm shift will come about, as you say, from some kind of external thing, meaning that if more and more events take place that are not, that they aren't being able to explain them with the regular scientific methods, or do you think that it will come about from people's own interests, or strive to take the scientific field even further that it is today? I know that you mentioned kind of the new technologies that we have available and so forth, and obviously the step towards quantum physics is obviously a leap in this direction, but would you say it something external have to happen, or is it an internal thing?
Well, I think it's the thing for everybody. It's an internal or an external thing. It really depends on what wakes you up, what gets you thinking. Could be, for some people it could be an external event, for some it could be an internal event, for some it could be a family event. I've talked to a lot of people now about their awakening experiences, and there's really no single point that you can identify and say, well, this is what people experience. It's wide open. It's totally idiosyncratic.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that. It's a personal journey, as it were. Therefore, it takes personal events to change people's lives. So definitely. Let's talk about some of the examples that you bring up in the booklet. I know the one thing that you mention is for instance the Princeton's Global Consciousness Project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I only know a little bit about that. Basically, what these people do is they stick eggs. They're a random number generated basically around the world, and they just monitor them. And they've noticed that when the consciousness of the Earth coheres, I guess is one way to say that. When, for example, we're all focused on the same event, like the 9/11 or the death of Princess Diane, for example, that the eggs start to cohere. They don't generate random numbers anymore. They start to generate patterns, which is, if you think about it, it's kind of a stunning phenomenon, and it's been duplicated several times. Not all world events manage to have this impact, but some of them do. And they're still struggling to figure out why some events do and some events don't. But the fact that some do, I would think it's probably really highly emotional events cause this change in the underlying chaos. When I came across that, coming across that was one of the things that kind of pushed me forward into the mysticism when I came across that a few years ago. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting finding.
Definitely.
And the fact that it was being done at Princeton,
Yeah. Do you think that these, these guys who perform these kinds of experiments are in it for, the fun of it, as it were, or do you think that they have the underlying scientific method in going about, trying to figure out what's going on? How do you think it's being conducted?
Oh, I think this stuff is really rigorous research. It's being conducted at the engineering labs and conducted under strict conditions, and it's really, it's